The current pandemic has a lot of different emotional aspects to it. We experience fear that we will catch the disease, fear that we will give it to someone, fear that someone we love will get sick, or worse yet, will die. We also experience anger over the loss of life, anger about how our lives have changed, and perhaps anger about how the crisis is being handled. And there are many other emotions that many of us feel. But rather than bore you with a long list, I'd like to focus on just one that doesn't get a lot of attention. Feeling a lack of purpose. Before the pandemic, most of us had multiple things in our lives that helped give us a sense of purpose. We had our hobbies and our activities. Some of us had school. There were the ways we served our community and our church. And for many of us, we put great importance on the value of our work. But that was before many of us had the work and the activities we do labeled as non-essential. I think this term has deeply wounded many of us, without us even knowing it. To be clear, the term wasn't created to wound, nor should we ignore the importance of categorizing our activities to determine which are avoidable as which, well, are the ones that are most important to avoid, because we need to prevent the spread of the disease. Yet, as necessary as those distinctions are, I think we also need to acknowledge that when our activities, the ones that help give us a sense of purpose, are labeled as non-essential, it wounds us. It robs us of a sense of purpose. This brings me to the line in today's gospel that I found most compelling. Jesus tells his disciples, "I will not leave you orphans." I think it's important to remember the context of these words. This passage from John's Gospel comes from the Last Supper. When he said these words, the disciples were less than 24 hours from losing their sense of purpose. For 3 years, these men had followed Christ and accompanied him through his preaching and his miracles. And Jesus sent them out to do important work. These men had been searching for meaning, and they had found it in following Christ. And Christ knew when he said this that tomorrow, the meaning and purpose of their lives would be destroyed, left hanging on a crucifix. And knowing that, what he wanted to tell them was, "I will not leave you orphaned." He was telling them that even though everything was going to change, all they had done up to then had great value and purpose. He was letting them know that once things changed, they would still have value and purpose. It was going to be different, but every single one of the disciples was loved by our Messiah, and every single one of them had value, and just as importantly, a new purpose. And so on behalf of Christ, I say to you today, even if it is appropriate that many of us are taking a hiatus from our work and our activities, you are not non-essential. Christ has not left us orphaned through this difficult time. In fact, he has something very important and essential for all of us to do. He needs us to go out. He asks us today to follow his commandments. And what does his commandments tell us to do? to go out into the world and share his love with our neighbors, to be a beacon of hope and light, to let the world know that we are not orphaned and that each and every soul on earth is essential to Christ.